All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the world's greatest Bronze Age comic book podcast, Flea Market Fantasy. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen. As always, I'm joined by
Michael Dell of the LCS Hockey Radio Show.
That's right. We've got a special guest this week. Why don't you tell everybody who's joining us?
It's our old buddy Miles Watson, everybody. Author and raconteur, Miles Watson. I think he's here. Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I choked when you said raconteur. I couldn't talk.
Yeah. International Playboy, Miles Watson.
Yeah. Man of mystery.
Miles, I think, I don't know, I've lost track of the appearances. I think this ties you with Kevin Jank now, I think.
Good. He's been getting cocky on Twitter. I don't like it. I'm here to put a stop to it.
So, yeah, here he is, tying up Kevin Jank. But we didn't let you pick the book. This is a Mike L. He picked the book this week. So, Mike L., why don't you tell the kids what we're reading this week?
Well, everybody knows what time it is. It is Shocktober. And because of that, I decided to pick a horror-themed comic book.
Is it?
And I'm going, it's a little bit. Horror-themed superhero. It's a mixture. So we're going with the first post-crisis appearance of the Spectre, and the Spectre #1 by Doug Moench and Gene Colan.
Yes, the Spectre. Now, Mike L., Miles Watson, I think you're aware of this, but every October, Mike L. gets very excited for Halloween. So we always have to do Shocktober, and he likes to pick horror-themed comic books. And Miles Watson, I know you love the horror movies and you love horror. And we were just talking how you're working on a horror novel at the moment. Before the show, we were chatting. But
True.
So I'm like, oh, you're the guy I've got to bring on to do the horror. But then Mike L. picks the Spectre. I don't know if this is really horror. Were you horrified reading this, Miles Watson?
I gotta say, I did not really. I mean, this has some of the trappings of horror, but would I consider this horror? No.
Yeah, this is nothing horror.
There definitely is not. I mean, they have like the tarot cards. You've got Madame Xanadu, and you have people coming back from the dead, and Satan worshippers and stuff.
Yeah.
So, especially, this is very Hammer horror-esque, with its trappings.
Yeah, but like
that
in terms
true.
of the execution of this issue, it's all exposition and setup. Really not anything really horror going on. But yeah, there are elements, I guess, down the road it could be a horror comic, maybe.
It's absolutely 100%. I feel like the elements of horror, but I didn't sense horror in the story.
Yes, yeah.
We're not horrified.
No, we are not horrified at all. Miles, do you have any history with the Spectre? Is this a new character for you, or do you know who he is?
I've heard of the Spectre. I have no experience with the Spectre. I was a little surprised at all of this, to be honest, the way it unfolded.
Yes. Now, because Mike L., I looked back at last Shocktober to see what you picked, and you picked the Spectre last October.
I didn't realize that.
It was daisy. Like you picked like an earlier, like you mentioned, this is post-crisis. I think we did a pre-crisis Spectre the last time. I don't know. So things changed a little bit, but go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say we're going to talk about pre-crisis, post-crisis a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, let me just, if you want a real detailed history of the Spectre, go back and listen to last year's episode because it's all there. Because it's the same thing. But I'll give you a quick summary here for Miles and other kids who don't know much about the Spectre. Let's see. Who was he created by? I didn't even write that down. Oh, wait, no. His first appearance was More Fun Comics, issue 52 from 1940. 1940. And he was created by Jerry Siegel and Bernard Bailey. So Miles Watson, one of the same guys who created Superman, created the Spectre. How about that?
I have to say that comes as a surprise given the material here, but keep going.
A little weird. And the character's name is Jim Corrigan, and he was a police detective. He was engaged to beautiful socialite Clarice Winston. But on his way to his engagement party, Corrigan was murdered by gangster Gat Benson and his crew. Stay away from Gat Benson. They stuffed his body in a barrel, they filled it with cement, and they dropped him in the river. That was my favorite part of the book. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So then, but then some disembodied voice wouldn't let him go to heaven. They sent him back to Earth to be God's vengeance against evil. And he was a charter member of the Justice Society of America, which started in All-Star Comics 3 in 1940. And then, he bounced around since then. So, but Michael, pre-Crisis, let me check with Miles here. Miles, do you know what the Crisis on Infinite Earths is in DC?
I actually am familiar with it, and the funny thing is as you were explaining his origin, I realized that I did read that comic decades ago.
Oh, how about that?
I was very disturbed, actually, as a small child reading my older brother's comic of the way they disposed of his body. That was very gruesome to me.
Yeah,
for a comic.
In a barrel?
Dumping him in the river. Yeah, that bothered me quite a bit.
That's my favorite part. I love that. All right, so, but Michael, pre-Crisis, basically the Spectre and Jim Corrigan shared the same body, right? They were like...
Yes.
So it was like one guy, basically. Right. But now here, post-Crisis, tell the kids what they did.
Well, before I even answer that, I just got to say that after the post-Crisis, most of the DC comic superheroes, they either got rebooted from scratch or they got altered origins, right? I believe Spectre might be the only one that not only continued on from, the previous version, but this is supposed to be the same character that's been around since like 1940. So as far as I know, they acknowledge all of his history, which is rare at that time, right? So yeah, in this issue, they not only establish his new status quo, but they explain it the whole way through. And now now the Spectre kind of comes out of Jim Corrigan, right, and does his thing, and then goes back to his body, which is a very painful process, apparently.
Yeah. Not just to read, but for Corrigan to experience.
Right.
Yes. So, like, the Spectre leaves Corrigan's body, and Corrigan is still there, and he can still function. He's not like he doesn't pass out or anything. And then he comes back to his body. And I always thought the Spectre looked cool. I always liked the Spectre, the old school Spectre. And I guess this version, they also powered him down a lot. He was basically a god there for a while. And so now he's just like a vengeful spirit just on Earth. For a while there, he was doing like cosmic vengeance. He was going on taking all over, but now he's just trapped here on Earth. But describe that for the kids who don't know what the Spectre describe what he looks like there, Michael.
So basically he looks human, but his skin is pure white. But then he has green little, like, what do you call those, pixie boots?
Yeah, that's what the men call them. Little pixie boots.
Yeah, like boots, like little like Robin, like little shoes. And then he has green underwear, green gloves, and then he has a green like cape and hood, but he's completely bare-legged and completely bare-chested.
Miles Watson, have you ever, like on the weekends, do you ever wear green underpants and a cape at any time?
I don't wait for the weekend.
Very good.
I'm wearing right now.
So what we're reading today is, like Michael said, Spectre issue 1 from 1987, and this is Spectre volume 2, and this series lasted for 31 issues, and it ran from 1987 to 1989. And you mentioned Doug Moench as the writer here, and he wrote all 31 issues. Gene Colan drew the first 6, and then they rotated in like 5 different artists or something, and so they didn't have a really consistent creative team.
Right.
And here's another quote I wanted to read you, Michael. I'll get your take. Oh, by the way, starting with issue 18, they scrapped that whole leaving the body thing, and they just merged them again. Yeah. So they got rid of that. But here's a quote I wanted to read. I think this was on DC Fandom, the website. Quote, "The last arcs of the run are notoriously bad, as they abandoned most of the initial supporting cast members and introduced new odd characters to fit a new narrative between crime and supernatural stories." So, Michael, if you didn't know about the body thing, I'm guessing you didn't read those final arcs. I wanted to know how notoriously bad they were.
I did read volume 3, which is the volume after this, but I've never read anything from this volume, so I'm completely unfamiliar with it.
All right, fair enough. Anything else about the Spectre before we get into this?
I'll just say one thing. We were talking about how they continued on from the old version. this costume was also designed in 1940, and that's partly why it looks so ridiculous, you know?
But it's awesome, though. I love it.
It's no, good colors, good colors. I just wish they'd give him more of like a, you know, like give it like a something that covers his body. It's just kind of ridiculous for him to be walking around essentially in his underwear, but whatever.
Miles is doing it right now. And you think
I am. I'm just not walking. I'm sitting. But
all right, let's look at the cover, Michael. By the way, this cover is drawn by Mike Kaluta.
Yes. Are you familiar with him?
I am not.
Oh, yeah, he's kind of a famous, you know, artist.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for breaking that down for us.
Yeah. Yeah, so on the cover here, we've got this really spiffy new Spectre logo, the Spectre. DC, this is new format. I'm not sure if you guys noticed that. New format.
What does that mean?
Slightly better paper. You know how back then they had the newsprint? Then you had the high-end books, which were Baxter paper, and this is in between new format, which I believe is Mando paper.
All right.
Yeah. And we've got a DC box with the logo inside. This was like a temporary kind of format they had. We got by Moench Colan. And this cover, I do like the cover, but I kind of like the interior art better for Spectre. We've got a shot of the Spectre. It looks like he's like, kind of like got his hand underneath the earth, and he's got his other hand out, almost like he's telling you to stop. And behind him, it looks like it's the sun, a red sun, and all these kind of souls are flowing around him in streams, almost like fish or something. Yeah, and that's pretty good. And like you got space behind him, and like maybe a moon or something. And at the bottom, what's that?
The ghostly guardian returns to Earth for vengeance.
Right.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I like all the little floating souls there. Miles Watson, what do you think of this cover?
I really like the floating soul thing. I think it's super cool. I think that that kind of, if you actually look really closely at it, you can see the chain of souls is coming out of Europe, swinging around. You know, it goes very deep into the artwork of the cover. I don't like his face.
Yes, I agree.
At all. I do not like that at all. I feel like it's just there's just a shabby execution. It's just not very good. The eyes.
Yes, the positioning of the eyes. I think it's all weird.
Yeah, and not just the positioning, but the fact that they chose the blank white, the white of his skin as the eyes. I feel like on a character like the Spectre, right? It's essentially a lot of negative space in the sense that you got some white skin, you got some green flowing stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's got his cape and his underwear or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of make something out of I guess what I'm trying to say is the hood. When you have a hooded character, whether it's death or anything else, you've got to have some indication of what's underneath that hood. And here they have this very stark white kabuki-like face, and then they don't make use of the eyes. I think when you have a hood, when you're making use of that black, you have to have like blazing eyes or sinister eyes, something. I don't think the eyes here were done at all. It's almost like unfinished.
Yeah, I just don't like the angles of them. Like they're positioned weird.
I think you could have done a great deal more with this cover just by executing what was in that cowl space.
I agree.
Better.
I agree. Like if it was heavy, like the inking of it is, if they would have just hit the heavy blacks in there instead of this thin little lines, I think it would have been a lot better. I don't know. So, Michael, any final thoughts on the cover?
Yeah, it's okay. It's not great. I like it, but it could have been better. I think the interior art is more appropriate.
I do like all those little bodies, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a cool idea, definitely.
I'm on board with that.
So, all right, the Spectre. And like you mentioned, I like the font of the title, though, the Spectre.
That's great. Great. I love it.
Agree on that as well. Yeah, I agree on that as well.
All right, Michael, so take us away. Issue 1.
So we open up with this character that I'm assuming we've never seen before. This is a woman named King Liang, or maybe it's pronounced Lang, I'm not sure. And she is typing away at her typewriter. It looks like she's in an office. I'm not sure what her job is, but She's kind of like singing along and, saying hi to people, whatever, saying hi to her boss. And then it just abruptly cuts away in the next scene to the Spectre floating around in space. And we have this narration describing how large he is. His eyes are stars spaced 23 light years apart, yet the light is lifeless. His brow holds the dark infinity of a mind doused by dying worlds. So, again, I mean, this is a rare post-crisis comic that acknowledges crisis, but he, during the crisis, helped like save the universe. And I guess in the Swamp Thing story, I'm not sure what he did, but he did something there. I don't remember. And so I guess now he's kind of like being punished by the Voice, right?
Yeah, he fucked up two things, I guess.
Right.
Like 2 planets he fucked up.
Yeah, because the Voice is like, yours was conceivably the power to halt a crisis on an infinite world, and also to preclude the epic struggle between heaven and hell, which that happened in Swamp Thing. And I guess, yeah, he failed at both of those. And then the Voice is kind of talking to him, but then it cuts back to another scene.
Well, before we get to that scene, just look at the Spectre on these pages, though. Miles Watson, kind of like what you were saying about the cover. His eyes are glowing yellow, and they got all kind of like energy and stuff crackling off his eyes.
So, it's almost like the star filter they use in 70s shows for like Battlestar Galactica and stuff. When any point of light on Chrome did the star filter, the big star, they're doing that. But that's cool. I mean, at least they're making use of his eyes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he should not just look like a guy with white makeup. He should look like ghostly in some way, right?
He should look like a specter.
He's not a person.
Yeah. He's a specter.
He's not a person wearing a costume. He's a ghost, so to speak.
Right.
So, all right, then we cut to the precinct, Michael.
Right.
Police department.
So, again, these are probably supporting characters from the previous, volumes that I haven't read. But this is I guess probably his partner. And he's talking to, so what's this guy's name? Lou. And he's talking to a guy named Barth. And I guess Jim Corrigan, which is Spectre's secret identity, has been missing. And so the guy's like, maybe he's dead or whatever. And the guy's like, hey, I ain't quite ready to bury Jim Corrigan. So he's going to find out where Jim Corrigan's been. And this guy's name is Lou Petrocchi. And then we cut back over to Kim Liang in her office. And she's kind of singing along. And then basically she kind of just almost goes into a trance, gets up from her desk, and starts walking out the hallway. And her boss is like, where are you going, Kim? She's like, beats me, Scribby, but I think I'm going to find something worth doing. And then slams the door. And then that's it. The boss is like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, and Scribby isn't some insult that no one understands. It's his name. His name is Scribby.
Yeah, right. And then at the bottom,
she was real happy at her job on that first page. She was singing, like loving everything, and then suddenly it just turns off like a switch. She hates it and she's quit.
Right.
Like, what's happened?
And then the narration says, "And her strange spunk leaves baffled zombies speechless." So that's a little poke against the office workers, right?
Yes, her strange spunk.
Yeah.
So, Miles, did you, I know we're real early into this, but did you feel that the narration was overwritten a little bit, perhaps?
I do indeed. I absolutely do. There definitely is some cool writing in the narration, but this is a very front-loaded, heavy object. This story is front-loaded to a degree that it's a bit astonishing with everything they're trying to shoehorn into a single issue, to the point where there's not much movement. I mean, you can only lumber the cart with so many goods.
Yes. It's a little heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, and we can talk about the whole execution later, but yeah, there's definitely a lot going on here. So
now we're back to the Spectre out in space, Michael.
Right. And the Voice is explaining to the Spectre, your punishment is both too severe and too lenient. It's too lenient because your state of death serves no purpose, and too severe because so awesome was your responsibility that it could result in nothing but failure. So basically the Voice is explaining to him that he's going to be punished. Like, I love this, how the voice, which is supposed to be God, basically, the voice changes his mind. He's like, actually, I'm going to change my punishment. But it kind of like, again, it's spread out throughout the issue. So we kind of cut away before we find out exactly what's going to happen. We cut back to Kim Liang, who is walking along, and she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's like, wonder what I'm doing here. Looking for a new job, I guess. So she's walking along, and she comes across, wait, what the hell is that again?
A flower pot falls and hits her on the shoulder.
Oh, right. And it actually cuts her, and she's bleeding. And she's like, blood. And then she turns around and she looks and it says, enter freely and unafraid. So, of course, she goes in. And it turns out that she's in the house or the home of Madame Xanadu, which I'm not sure if you guys know who Madame Xanadu is.
I do not.
I don't know much about her. I just know that she's a magic-themed DC character from the 70s, basically.
Oh, okay. So she existed before this.
Definitely, yeah. At least, let me just quickly look this up. She first appeared in Doorway to Nightmare in #1 in 1978.
But I do know that Miles has the soundtrack to Xanadu. John. You love that, right?
Am I allowed to swear on this podcast? I don't remember.
Do it.
When I first met Miles, he had it on his Walkman, and he was listening to it.
All right, fuck you. That's the only appropriate response to everything you just said. Although, if I recall correctly, there is in Xanadu is the actor from The Warriors and Warlords of the 21st Century.
That is correct. Yes, which is something we watched on the LCS show. Hey, by the way, Michael, you know your beloved cousin Brandon. You know you love cousin Brandon, right? Well, one time on the LCS show, he was supposed to come on our show, and I said, "Hey, Brandon, can you come on the show Friday?" And he said, "No, I can't. The wife and I are going to see Xanadu."
Come on. Really?
Yes. So I'm like,
I've never seen Xanadu.
Yeah, I don't think they're seeing the movie version. I think they're going to see it like a play, like a live action.
Oh, gotcha.
But either way, poor decision.
Yeah. Is the movie worth seeing?
No, I mean, Miles, do you remember? When I was a little kid, I remember I saw it when I was like 4 years old or something.
I've never seen it.
Right.
Can't pretend that I have.
I mean, it's got Olivia Newton-John, so that's something. But yeah,
I was never swept up in the Olivia Newton-John craze of the very early 80s. It just didn't sweep me up.
You never let your body talk? You never got physical? Let's get physical.
Oh, I could tell some humiliating stories from grade school about some of those songs, but I think I'll spare your audience that.
All right. Well, we don't have an audience, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. Well, then I'll spare myself.
All right. So, yeah, Kim Liang is meeting Madame Xanadu, and she's got tarot cards, and she says she's going to tell her future or whatever. And then we cut back out into space, and we see the Spectre again with the glowing yellow eyes, and he's floating through space, Mike Gale, and the voice is still talking to him. That damn voice.
Yeah. 1 second. My computer's freezing here. Just a minute. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, we're back out in space, and the voice is explaining to Spectre what's going to happen. And he's basically saying that there are unnatural spirits, the victims of murder, or those that are born in trauma, and they endure a restless suffering alleviated only by final justice. So it sounds like the voice is going to make the Spectre this new spirit of vengeance, you could say. So the voice is like, there is need, in short, for a ghost to hunt and haunt the ghost makers, for an avenging spirit of all spirits. And
there's one other key detail there at the end. And know that the manner of that which you meet, the haunting and halting of killers, must be worthy of the crimes committed. So basically, fuck them up, you know? Like if they do bad stuff, gloves are off.
Yeah,
fuck them up. Because I remember that story we read, Michael, before, like, the Spectre would get revenge on these people in sometimes unique ways. Like didn't he turn a guy into like wax or something and melt him?
Right, and then like he turned a guy into a piece of paper and then cut him with scissors or something. Yeah.
Yes. So that opens the door, Miles, for a lot of interesting possibilities, right? Just murdering people left and right. You can do whatever you
Yes, there's an infinite possibility for him to take vengeance on the evildoers of this strip.
So that's pretty good, right? That's a good setup, you know. All right. Well, then we see our girl Kim again. She the fortune teller told her to go to like the I don't know, the train station or something, and go to a locker there, and to get what's in the locker.
So she goes to this locker and opens it up, and there's this gigantic, like, what do you call this? It's
a bowling trophy. It's a bowling.
Not quite, but yeah.
It's like a giant urn.
Yeah. And like she actually comments that it's too big to fit in the locker. It looks really big. And like there's like security guards around, and they're like, "Hey, it looks mighty heavy, miss. Need some help." And hold on, here my computer is all wacky. And so we cut away before we can get any further with that scene. And then basically the voice is continuing to explain to Spectre what is going to happen. So the voice is like, "But to assume your new role, dead one, you must be delivered back to life. Yet to suit the stature of your new role, and also because you no longer deserve omnipotence, and also because now it's post-crisis, much of your former power must be stripped away." So basically, Doug Moench is trying to establish kind of a new status quo for Spectre, and he decided to incorporate it into the story and explain it as it's going along. And he's like, the voice is like, "By the end of your transit, you will be grievously diminished. Indeed, nothing more than the most potent Spectre on Earth." And then, so he's like, "Go back to Earth. You're good to go. See you later." And so then, meanwhile, the bowling trophy has been delivered back to Madame Xanadu's house. So these delivery guys carry it in, and then Madame Xanadu is like, "You were destined to deliver the vessel here." Like looking at the tarot cards, and then basically, they knock it over, and Gene Colan is a good artist, but sometimes things get a little confusing. But it basically gets knocked over, and it breaks apart, and Jim Corrigan is inside of it. It looks like he's covered with spider webs.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to outer space, which I can only assume is kind of like a, what do you call that? Not a ghost dimension, but like a, like another plane of existence kind of thing. More so than space. And then we cut away again to this guy who is this is what's his name? Jim Corrigan's partner. Is it Lou? So
Lou Petracci. Yeah. I don't think it's his partner. It's just another cop.
Just another cop. So he breaks into his apartment, and he finds like his bed is empty. He finds like a half-eaten plate of food on the table, and he sees a cockroach. And then he picks up this jar of ketchup, and then he looks in it, and he sees what looks like, I guess, could be two eyes.
Yeah, I was a little confused there. I thought it was just a reflection, but yeah, it's like two eyes.
Right.
Yeah, I was having difficulty following this.
Right, me too. And he's like, "Huh? All right." And then he's kind of hypnotized now too. He's like, "All right, yes, of course, right away." So then he leaves the apartment. We cut back to Jim Corrigan with Madame Xanadu and Kim Lang, and then we see this kind of surreal little scene of the Spectre re-entering.
Yeah, we see his ass.
Right. We see kind of spirits all floating around or whatever. A lot of stuff here, and then we see another. What is this? Two jars from Madame Xanadu's shelf kind of fly off the shelf and dump stuff out. And then we get the worst line of dialogue in the whole book where Kim Liang's like, "Oh boy, this is kind of like that Poltergeist jazz, no?" and then we see things floating around in the air, and Kim Liang's trying to dodge them as they're kind of smashing around. And then they kind of it says in the narration's he stops. The vortex spirals off, sweeping through far galaxies, brushing unknown worlds, losing strength, its purpose spent. The faces go to hell or heaven. So those are all the spirits. He knows not where, but all before their times. 5 different stars blaze in certain significant configuration. So he ends up materializing on the ground, and Jim Corrigan is still there. But he's inside Jim Corrigan. But then he comes out of Jim Corrigan. So Jim Corrigan wakes up, but then the Spectre floats out of him separately.
Yes.
Right.
So this is like a distinction from the previous Spectre, that now he can leave Corrigan's body.
Right. And then we see behind the Spectre that Jim Corrigan is in pain. He's like, oh, God, like my good guts ripped out. And then the Spectre's like, if you are the one, never deny him again. I don't know what that means, but anyway.
Yeah.
So then we cut over to...
Yeah, he's saying that. He's saying that to, like, Kim. He's not...
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. He's just... I don't know. She's destined to be his assistant, right?
Right. He explain later that, yes, she's his assistant, right? So anyway, we cut over to Lou Petrocchi's West Side apartment, and he's got something else going on here. He is, like, smashing bottles, and there's this... so this was the creature that was inside the ketchup bottle.
Yeah, he smashed the ketchup bottle open, and there's like a red blob.
Yeah, like a blob with a little face with two yellow eyes, and the blob is talking to him, and it's like, good boy, Louis, now the bathtub, and then cardboard. And he's like, yes, cardboard, plenty of cardboard from boxes and stuff. So then we cut back to Jim Corrigan, and he's talking about how his guts feel like they're bleeding, gushing, spilling out. Pardon me. And then Madame Xanadu's like explaining the new status quo. She's like, you and he are bound now. The relationship has changed. His departure will always cause pain. Jim Corrigan, it will always weaken you. But with each release, you will learn to control the pain a little more. I mean, we could have found that out in subsequent issues, but they decided to explain it. So then, kind of just explaining, and then, hold on a second here.
Well, like Kim passes out because she faints. She's just getting all weird about all this. So, Miles, did you like this part where Jim Corrigan scoops her up, and he's taking her upstairs to like their office, and he says, "Quite a looker, this Kim Lang, cute and sexy at the same time, making the sexy part sexier." What a creep!
Yeah, I appreciated that he's literally carrying an unconscious woman up to his chamber, his private office, as he's rating her looks. It's very, very Hollywood, very Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, because he's carrying her up those steps. Like, it's pretty clear he intends to make sweet, sweet love to her, whether she's awake or not.
Yeah, and the Madame Xanadu too is like the groomer for. Yes,
she's like Harvey Weinstein, like Jeffrey Epstein and Giselle.
Epstein doesn't kill himself. Whole thing. You look at her expression in the second panel at the top. She's staring up at this candle with this wondrous expression, and there's these statues in the hallway. And she clearly thinks she's doing something really important. She's having this transcendent experience. Meanwhile, Corrigan is carrying the unconscious chick up, rating her looks.
And then he says, so when they get to the 5th floor threshold, almost like a honeymoon, but French style, with you along for the ride. And then she says, hardly a menage a trois. So he wanted to make 3. He didn't just want to have... Like, hell, what are they doing over at DC with these creeps that are there?
These young men are living out their fantasies, I think, in these comic books,
Man. So, this is all very disturbing. But, all right, Michael, so, Madame Xanadu, their offices are on, like, the 5th floor of this building. And she takes them up to the offices. And then Corrigan puts Kim down on the bed there. But he doesn't have a second.
Right. And then Madame Xanadu's like, but that which is befallen you is a strange tale. And then it just cuts away to what's his name?
One other detail about their office. I don't know if you noticed, but if you look at the desk, there's a phone, a coffee mug, a lamp, and a little gumball machine. How about that? He has a little thing of gumballs. That's weird. All right.
But anyway, then we cut back over again. Hold on. I keep clicking around. Sorry, this is like my computer's all wacky. So we click over to... Wait, is this
these are just random dudes. These are random Satanists. One guy's
So this guy answers the phone. He's like, a resurrection, you're sure? The work of our Lord and Master? And then the other guy's like, no, of the other side. But it has created an opening for us, one our Lord has already begun to exploit. The time is right to gather again, to reform the cult of the blood red moon. And then the narration says, and 5 flies, forming a pentagram, feast on the sweat of feverish excitement, taking sacrament of salt, raising wealth. And that's on the guy's face that was talking on the phone.
Yeah, he just had flies on his face. It's weird.
Yeah, now this is what's kind of weird is, so the conversation from the last scene now continues back, and now the Madame Xanadu's like, or no, sorry, Jim Corrigan's like, before you start this strange tale, lady, it occurs to me that one corner of the new balcony looks bare without a granite base. Maybe we should replace it with a gargoyle. And then Madame Xanadu's, there are several in my storage room below, but now she stirs and deserves explanation. But then Jim Corrigan, oh no, not again. And then Spectre leaves his body. And then Madame Xanadu's like, yes, your pain must be endured to pass beyond the pain. And then we cut to the Spectre, who now comes in the room.
Yeah, I was just going to say the Spectre's there. And he says he feels the forces gathering, stirrings of evil. Perhaps the first mission of my new station.
Right. And then we
cut back to Lou and his bottle of ketchup. Explain this, Michael. What is going on here?
Well, I don't know, but he's, I guess, got all this cardboard, and now the creature...
Why did he need cardboard? I don't understand.
I don't know, but he's become some type of cardboard creature, but it basically just looks like, I don't know what, like a big tub of spaghetti with a human face and human hand, kind of.
Yeah, it looks like he's a Lou, our detective guy. Looks like he's stuck in a thing of like taffy.
Right. And then the voice is like, besides, it begins now. And the guy's like, what begins? He's like, your process of corruption, Louis, the conversion of cop to killer. Then the narration says, in heaven and hell, the dead faces moan. And then it says at the bottom, next, the Spectre's new powers defined and brought to bear against first stirrings of evil. That's the end.
Well, so by the next issue, if you'd like to have more things defined.
Yeah.
That's what all comic book readers love, have things defined. Miles, there you go. Issue 1 of the Spectre. Thoughts? What do you think?
I just didn't know what the hell to make of this at all. To be brutally honest, when I saw the thing in the ketchup bottle and then he chewed up cardboard and imprisoned the guy with, I was like, what the fuck is happening here? What did I miss? I went back and read it twice because I was convinced I'd missed some panels. And I just didn't understand what was happening. I get it. With the introduction of the character, it's way overwritten as far as that goes, because I feel like it's actually pretty straightforward. You've got the Spectre is this once all-powerful creature who failed in his duty, so he's being demoted. And they're going to stick him in the body of this dead cop, reanimating him, so they're going to team up. That's actually a fairly straightforward concept. It's been done, or has been done subsequently. So I didn't have a problem with that, but they spend a lot of time getting there, and then there's no climax here other than a cop sitting in a tub covered with melted cardboard while a thing the size of my cat's head talks to him. It's very baffling. I mean, we see the Satanist cult, stirring into action. Okay. That I get, that there's an antagonist that's rising up that's going to be dealt with in another comic, but I thought that this was very heavy on exposition, and it was just heavy. It's burdened by the amount of stuff they're trying to accomplish. Like, I think Michael said it earlier, said there was no need to go into the process of how his power is different, or your powers are going to be different this time. It's more painful now. That all, I think, they're doing too much too soon. They're what's the phrase from grad school? They say, show don't tell.
Right.
They're kind of telling everything here. This is very heavy exposition.
It's like they just want to get all the details out of the way in issue 1, so they don't have to worry about them again, and then they can just tell their story instead of like sprinkling them out throughout the,
right.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, what they do here isn't awful or anything, like, in terms of, like, just the nuts and bolts of it. Like, it's fine, but there had to be a better way to tell this first issue, no? Miles, like, if you were plotting, like, if you were, like, I think they could have covered a lot of this ground in, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 pages, and then, I don't know, have it, like, something exciting to keep the reader hooked by the end. I don't know. Just, because there's nothing here that's going to make me want to read the next issue. I'm not going to be like, oh, my God, I got to pick up issue 2. This is so awesome.
I fully agree, because I think that, honestly, this just could have been done in a lot less space, leaving room for a first adventure. Yeah. I think you could have done a certain amount of running exposition as things were going on, and that's where the Lang character could have stepped in. It's what's going on, what's happening, and then the Spectre could have done, well, foolish mortal, blah 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 blah, and then Kerrigan being like almost playing the Ben Grimm role in Fantastic Four of going, why are you slapping her silly with the 50-cent words? Like, let's just get to it. Yeah, I just feel like I feel like almost any other set of comic book writers would have used a formula somewhere in that ballpark. Not that exact formula, but something along the lines of a running narrative. They're laying all their cards out on the table so quickly. There's no, especially by the standards of modern storytelling, where they like to kind of parcel out a character's backstory. You don't tell you everything right away.
Right.
You get to know the character, which is one of the things about modern storytelling that I actually approve of, is that you get to know the characters through action, because that's something Mike Bell, as my
action
editor,
is character.
Say,
action is character.
And you can show people what the character is like. You don't have to have this tremendous narration. Not that I think that the narration of the Spectre was bad, but it's a lot. It's heavy. It's a lot. It's slow, and there's no first adventure here. It's almost like this is a prologue to the adventure that they could have had in this episode. They could have had 2 Satanists trying to kill Corrigan, and she gets caught up in it, and the Spectre's, his powers aren't full, so they're fleeing, and, because he's just been created. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, the more I'm thinking about it, okay, so this is number 1, but it's kind of like the number 1 of a new era. So imagine if we started with Kim Liang, and she met Jim Corrigan, and Jim Corrigan, it's almost like he was trying to convince her, I'm this powerful ghost, but I lost my powers or something, and then maybe he gains them back, but he's wondering why he's not as powerful as he was, and maybe he's like, almost like pleading with God, like, or the voice, like, what's wrong? Why can't I do it? I don't know, like complaining that he's not as powerful as he used to be or something like that. But it's almost like he has to figure out what his new mission is. That would have been much better, I think, than to have just all dumped on him.
Yeah, there's multiple different ways this could have been done, and they all would have been better than this.
Right.
But I mean, again, if you choose this path, if you choose like this story that they're telling, it's fine. But there's other ways to tell this story than what they chose to do. Is what I'm trying to get at. You know what I mean?
And also, even if they're going to do it this way, don't spread it out over 27 issues or pages. And also, cutting back and forth between 3 or 4 different plots made it even worse, I think.
Yeah. But like, you could have really had him out in space there. Like, they cut back to him in space at least 3 or 4 times, maybe twice tops, and that would have been it.
Could have been one scene.
Yeah. So I don't know. Any other thoughts, Michael, about the writing here?
I mean, I've read Doug Moench and Gene Colan's work before on Batman, and it definitely has a nice atmosphere to it. But I've never been a huge fan of his writing, so it's kind of just par for the course for me.
Yeah, I only know him through the other issues we've done on this show. But I just remember he does a lot of Batman, right? Oh, we talked about him.
Right, and then what's the other one he did? Moon Knight, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did like all the old 70s Moon Knights, and he did some. Was it Master of Kung Fu?
That sounds right as well. Yeah. How about that? Miles, does the name Doug Moench mean anything to you? Like, do you remember him as a Batman writer?
It does, actually. Yeah, it does. Because I remember as a kid being fascinated by the name Moench.
Yeah. I always think of the who was the guy that wrote for NYPD Blue? Milch. I always think of, remember Doug? Remember that guy? And he wrote Deadwood. Remember?
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Deadwood.
Yeah. But I always think of that. But anyway, Miles, did he write that book that you picked the one time about the two Batmen? Remember where the one Batman was Michael Golden drew it? And
oh, that's a good question. I don't remember anymore.
Mike L., did he write that Batman 1? That special?
Let me quickly Google it. Batman, that was with the Raft, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that was Mike W. Barr.
Oh, Mike W. Barr. All right.
Yeah.
I should have remembered that. But.
What about Gene Colan, Miles? Did you like the art here, Gene Colan?
I actually did kind of like a lot of the art, not all of it by any means, but I liked those NYPD guys outside the precinct. I thought that was nicely drawn. There's some old school artwork here that I associate actually with an earlier age from this was later 80s.
Yeah.
And
yeah, Colan was big in the 70s.
And
that's exactly what I was getting at. His artwork reminds me very much of the 70s artwork that I grew up with reading my older brother's comics from the late 60s and all through the 70s. And I kind of like that artwork to a degree. It definitely has its limitations, and I think those limitations were highlighted in this comic with some of the drawings of the Spectre himself, like when he's contorting around in space. I did not like that diving into the body art. There's a lot of weak, kind of sloppy panels here that disappointed me because some of the better panels are kind of cool. There's some nice panels that I approve, like with the cops and the cop car and stuff, and when those two cops are talking. I kind of like that. But there's a lot of sloppiness here. There's just kind of almost like a laziness, or maybe they were rushed type of feeling. It wasn't aesthetically very pretty. It's a slovenly, messy kind of look to a lot of it.
I hear you. I love Gene Colan. This isn't prime Gene Colan. Michael, do you happen to have any idea how old he would have been here? Like, he'd probably been in his 50s, maybe?
I can only guess. Let's just say, I don't know, maybe 40, 50, I don't know.
But, like, this wasn't his prime, when he was at his peak of his powers. So, I don't know. There are, like, some of these panels here are, like, classic Gene Colan. They're like, oh, yeah, that's Gene Colan. And then some of them are just, like, really quick and rushed and sloppy. But
the other thing, too, I don't think inker suits him. I think that could be the problem.
That's what I was about to mention. Because did Colan used to ink his own stuff? Like, when he was doing Tomb of Dracula and stuff?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think so. And it was much better, yeah.
Yeah, because he had such a distinctive look to everything he did. It was all heavy blacks and a lot of shadows. So I'm guessing he had to have been inking that. So yeah, the inking here, it doesn't always fit with what he's doing. The inker here is, I think, is it Bill Mitchell? Is that his name? Steve Mitchell. Steve Mitchell. I mean, it's okay, but it's not like classic Gene Colan inking.
No, it loses the shadows and like the texture and all that.
Yeah. Yes, because Colan's stuff was always very atmospheric and like almost like film noir, like, shadows and light and just really dark stuff. So yeah, but I'm a big fan of Colan though normally, but this probably isn't like his best work.
Okay, so I just found out he would have been like 62 years old when he did this.
See, that's what I figured. He was older. So yeah, this isn't like peak Colan here. So.
No.
Anyway, it's still good, but not amazing or anything.
Right.
There were several points where, like, you mentioned it with the ketchup bottle and like the flower pot hitting her on the shoulder, where even Corrigan breaking out of the vessel when it breaks. You had to go back and like look a second time just to make sure you were following correctly, because the story kind of got jumbled a few times. Like, oh wait, what just happened there? This guy really likes ketchup. What is happening? So there's a guy in that bottle with the ketchup. But anyway,
that was so weird.
Yeah, it was very.
I was really off-put by the ketchup thing. I lost it there. I was, what the hell is this? This is really weird. And the face looks like the face of my cat.
Yes, little black face with yellow eyes. But I love the setup, though, for the Spectre, avenging spirit on Earth, going after criminals and just fucking them up. So, like, Miles, that's a great premise, and you could get a lot of great stories out of that. And I just don't know if I'm making a list of all the great stories that can come out of that. Number one, wouldn't it be a guy in a ketchup bottle? like a little blob and a ketchup. That's what I want to do.
And I would just like to second that emotion, because there are times, and as an aficionado of horror, since we're talking Shocktober here, I would just like to say that no genre, especially as it's translated into film, but I think this is probably universal truth, no genre has more cool ideas, just really interesting, intriguing ideas that come out than horror does, that are also so absolutely squandered, misused, underplayed, screwed up, bungled, fumbled. I mean, you take any like 50 horror movies just randomly from like the last 20 years to the beginnings of horror, like classic horror films of yesteryear, and you will find so many cool ideas and concepts of supernatural horror, of vengeance themes, of all the different themes of horror, and you will find so many of them botched that you're like, this was a great idea, but they fucked up the execution. I feel like once you get the ketchup and the cardboard involved in this, I'm just going, what are you thinking? This is what you did with your opening adventure. I just really think this could have been, I don't mean to harp on it, but I kind of do mean to harp on it. I think that this could have been one of those things where you have a kind of slam bang, almost Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark opening, where you put people in the middle of a situation and you explain it on the fly, and you do the bare minimum of explaining, and you leave the deeper exposition for later episodes so that you can draw these characters out and find out where they are. You've got the bored girl who's kind of unconventional, who's suddenly, she wants adventure, right? But she's suddenly thrust into adventure, and she's like, hell no. Now I want my normal life back. Well, you can't have it because now you're bonded to these guys, and that's all there is to it. Fate, is going to lead you here. You're screwed. You've got the cop who thought he was dead. I'm at rest. Oh my God, now I've been brought back to life. I don't want to be alive. I want to be dead. You got and then maybe you have the Spectre. They did a great riff on this on the show Angel, where they had a god who was compressed into human form. So like 90% of the power is lost. So the god is super pissed off all the time and just destroying things and killing people. And they're constantly trying to bring it in line. And it's like, no, I'm a god. I'm angry. And it's smashing things, but it's not as powerful as it used to be. You could have had this three-way dynamic of three unhappy people who are forced to work together and ultimately find a chemistry and a groove. And like, I'm already seeing all these possibilities for this story. And then I got cardboard. I got a talking ketchup bottle and a top covered in melted cardboard. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, it was weird. And especially since like he's being punished to be on Earth, to be avenging spirit on Earth. And then the first kind of villain he's dealing with is some sort of ketchup demon. It's like, I don't know. Can he just be like a murderer?
And I have no sense whatsoever that the Spectre feels like he's being punished. That's the thing, is they're like the agony, the torment. But he's not affected by either the physical pain that he's supposedly in or the emotional pain of your bungling killed uncountable trillions of people and set, the crisis on Infinite Earth and all that stuff. Instead of being a soul in torment, he doesn't seem to care. He's completely unaffected by anything that happens to him. His body's going through this whirlwind, this horrible process, but he doesn't seem to care.
That's an exceptional point there, Miles Watson. Because, we see Corrigan being miserable physically because of his belly hurt and stuff, because he gets the soul getting ripped out of him. But even like Corrigan doesn't seem like all that shaken up about, hey, am I dead? Or like, why did I just wake up out of that barrel or that face?
Yeah, they have the emphasis is all in the wrong place in this story. It's very weird, the choices that they made to emphasize. You have all these scenes with Madame Xanadu, who's really what they call a MacGuffin in storytelling. For anybody out there listening who's not familiar with that term, it's a plot device that's used to bring things together, and it has no other purpose. And sometimes it feels very contrived.
Well, Miles Watson, I just want to spoiler alert. She has a purpose later, because later on in the series, her and Corrigan become lovers. That's right.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's nice to know. So he was trying to, she got jealous when she realized he was going to try to sleep with Lang, and
maybe they made
I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't understand and not knowing where the series goes. Some of my comments may be dead wrong, but I just felt like the emphasis is all in the wrong places. Yeah. In this opening act, they're overemphasizing things that they should be underplaying at this point and just explaining too much.
Agreed. Miles or Michael, any other thoughts on this first issue?
No, I am slightly disappointed because I did read the Tom Mandrake and what's his name? John Ostrander, Tom Mandrake run, and that was pretty good. So I was disappointed by this for sure. Not as good as I thought it would be.
Yeah. I don't know. What would you give it 1 out of 10, Michael?
I don't know. I guess I'll give it a 5 out of 10, or maybe even a 4, because I think Gene Colan's art is enough to elevate it, but I could read future issues, but I'm definitely not excited to.
Yeah. Miles Watson, what do you think? 1 out of 10.
Oh, I'm going to go with, I'm not going to completely trash it because I do think there was potential here that they may or may not have been able to tap into later, but just based on this alone, I'd give it like a 3.5, maybe a 4 if I was feeling generous. I think there's some cool things here. I liked some of the artwork very much, some, not enough, but some. And I actually don't think the exposition was badly written. I think the intellectual level of the exposition is extremely high, even for, comics of this era. I think were tended to be written at a higher level than people give them credit for, as far as the narration. But I just don't think, I might go as high as a 5 in a really charitable day, but I'm gonna split the difference and say a 4.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say a 4 for this.
I think that's
too slow. Not enough happens.
I think that's where it should be, 4 or 5 in there. I'll go 4 as well. Nothing, like I said, nothing what they did here is awful, but I can't recommend it either. Like I wouldn't say, you got to read this. So it has to be like a negative review. But I do like Gene Colan though, and I like the Spectre as a character. But I just thought they could have made better choices here.
This reminds me of just a bad pilot that intrigues you on television, where you go, huh. Yeah. Like that wasn't very good, but I see the potential in it.
Yes.
Right.
I've had that experience a number of times with television where you watch a pilot or the first season of a show and people go, God, how did you get past I guess a good example might be like, if you're a science fiction nerd, would be like Star Trek Deep Space Nine or something, where it takes like 3.5 years for the show to become good. But then it becomes amazing. Like it transitions from being pretty mediocre and not very good to okay to half decent, pretty decent. And then it becomes amazing for like 4 years. But it took them this enormity of time to get there that it shouldn't have taken, that the nerd fans always sort of overlook. Like, oh yeah, if you just get past the first 3 years, you're lucky to get halfway through a bad pilot. It's like, because the pilot wasn't any good either. But you could see the potential of the series in that, and I think I could see. I'm almost hyped up by, as a writer, the potential here for that three-way thing. You could even have Mike Dell said, you even have a potential for a love triangle later on. Or a love quadrangle, because technically you've got Madame Xanadu being the kind of odd person out, but like there's so much potential for what's really a very simple idea, and it would have been, I hope that they did ultimately do more with the idea, but you always have to rate something based on itself. If you're just rating something, you got to rate that issue, and rating on that, I would give this about a 4. And
it doesn't seem like they did anything else with it, seeing how the series ended after 31 issues, and the last few were notoriously bad. So I'm guessing they but
was there more pizza and cardboard? And
we can only hope. Can only hope. Maybe a mustard bottle comes into play at some point. But let me just say, before I give next week's issue, if you're listening to the show, if you just stick with us for 3.5 years, I promise this podcast will come back. Just hang in there.
I like that.
Just hang in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
day the formula will be there. You'll tune in and you'll be like, wow, this doesn't suck. I just had to sit through 67 consecutive podcasts that sucked, especially when Miles Watson was on.
No.
Once they stopped inviting that asshole on there, the show actually rose from a 3 to a 3.5.
Well, Miles, you're welcome to come back next week if you want, because it is still Shocktober, but that's entirely up to you. It's all, it's your call.
I'm always down. I'm always down.
Wait till you hear what I picked. All right, so Michael, I was thinking I don't usually get involved with your Shocktober, but it is the season, Michael, so I'm going to join. I'm going to pick another horror book to keep the Shocktober theme going, or at least a horror-themed book. And I was going to pick something Morbius, the Living Vampire. You're aware of that guy, right?
Yeah.
But I was looking back at some of his stuff, and wow, did it all suck. It was all terrible. And the art was brutal, and I'm like, I don't want any part of this, so I skipped that. Then I was going to do some of the black and white, like the zombie book, Tales of the Zombie, or the Vampire Tales, like the black and white anthology books. Do you remember those?
Sure. Yeah.
But they were kind of weird, so I didn't do that. Then I considered Brother Voodoo. I love Brother Voodoo, but I'm going to save him. Brother Voodoo's he's good all year. We don't need to put him in Shocktober. You know what I'm saying? So I'll read some Brother Voodoo in December. I'm not scared. We'll do that later. So for this next week, I picked Dead of Night, issue 11 from 1975. Are you aware of this book, Michael?
Never.
Dead of Night. This book, it's the final. I think it's the final issue of this series, and I think they just told different stories each book. And in this issue, we get to deal with the Marvel's version of Scarecrow.
Oh, really?
Yes, Marvel had their own Scarecrow. Not to be confused with the Batman villain. And
right.
Yeah, so I've never experienced him or read anything with him in it. So here it is, Dead of Night, issue 11, 1975. The Scarecrow. So, Miles Watson, are you excited for that? Do you really want to do that?
I actually kind of am, because I don't know what it's called. I think it's Night of the Scarecrow. There was that. It's actually a TV movie. It's not even gory or anything, but a million years ago, there was a TV movie called Night of the Scarecrow. It was kind of infamous among my generation because it scared the crap out of a lot of kids. It's about this guy who's like retarded or something. And he gets blamed. He gets scapegoated for a crime that he didn't commit. And while he's trying to hide, he puts on a scarecrow outfit and he pretends to be the scarecrow, and they find him and they murder him. Like, it's really gruesome and not gory, but it's gruesome. It's like a brutal killing. It's like the killing in Candyman. It's like there's these overtones of just, like a violent mob murdering this helpless person. He's whimpering, and then after he's dead, the scarecrow seems to come to life, and it starts taking horrible vengeance on these assholes and killing them in inventive ways. And it's PG because it was a TV movie, but like a guy gets in a thresher, and that kind of pitchfork, and they all get theirs at the hand of this dude. But that scared the crap out of a lot of kids born in the 70s. It was sort of a Children of the Corn almost in terms of imagery. Or if you watched Friday the 13th, the series, they did an episode based on that as well, with the scarecrow running around killing people. But scarecrows are kind of creepy if they're done right.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't want to ruin your enthusiasm for this book, but apparently I was just flipping through it. He just seems like a superhero who dresses like a scarecrow. That's all he seems like.
Oh, you asshole! Why would you? Oh, God.
It doesn't really seem like he's murdering anybody.
I just went on this whole tangent and all for nothing.
Yes, I really don't know how horror this is either. We get right down to it.
I'm glad that these that we're gonna do Shocktober, these horror themed comics that have no horror in them at all.
But sometimes during the fall you can see a scarecrow. So unless
you're Lang and you wake up and you're being carried up steps by a complete stranger who was dead a minute ago, and he's talking about how sexy he thinks you are.
Yeah,
like cute and sexy. Yeah.
Well, Michael, so
well, the enabler goes out in front.
But Michael, so since the Scarecrow is not too horrifying either, I think you really have to bring it home then at the end of October.
You just wait to see what I've got cooked up.
All right, you got to pick something extraordinary, because I really couldn't. I couldn't find it. I was struggling to find something, So I want the Scarecrow. But
trust me, I got you covered.
All right,
okay,
that's promising. But all right, so Miles Watson, thanks for joining us. And again, you're welcome back next week if you want, but no obligation. In the meantime, everyone should go to Amazon or 19books.com and buy Miles Watson's books. We got Cage Life, Knuckle Down, the MMA fighting ones, Mystery Suspense. And then we have, what's the other one? I'm blanking, Miles. Help me. Sinner's Cross.
Sinner's Cross is the World War II book. That is true.
And the short story collection.
It is October. Yeah, since it is October, there's a horror short story collection called Devils You Know, which is also on those various sites.
Yeah, just go to Amazon or 19books.com. You'll find them, buy them up. So thank you, Miles Watson.
Thank you, gentlemen. And until then, please stay away from ketchup bottles and large stacks of cardboard.
Well, I'll do what I can.
Right. Yes,
all right, Michael.
8th appearance of Miles Watson, yes, and next week, if you're back, it'll be number 9, so you're in the lead.
Yeah,
That's where I belong.
So yeah, be sure to join us next week and every week on Flea Market Fantasy. We always review Bronze Age comics. 1 week I pick, 1 week Mike Dell pick. You can listen to every episode on the Comic Book Syndicate channel on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. Also the Comic Book Syndicate Twitter feed, YouTube channel, Facebook page, and the Comic Book Syndicate website. So until next Tuesday, disperse.